Small acts of resistance. Quitting my job, practicing herbalism, going back to my world, growing your own food, shopping local, supporting small businesses, withholding dollars from big corporations, playing dumb when confronted by authoritarian figures. These are all small acts of resistance. And it's really important right now that we come together in our communities and just practice just little small acts of resistance. I'm taking you on a walk because I'm going to show you a new herb today, something that's growing on the property here. This property is really pretty, by the way. Look at these old yew trees. Okay, so we're going to talk about a new plant today. We're going to get off the weeds. You know, I've been talking a lot about our common backyard weeds. I have a whole series on those if you want to check them out. But yeah, so we're going to jump to a different kind of plant. The plant I'm going to introduce you to today is loquat. I love this plant. It is a small tree. It grows 10 to 12 feet tall. And if you remember, I'm in zone 9A and I'm in the Florida Panhandle. The Panhandle is the part that looks like a part of a panhandle. It's up in the top northwest. And this plant grows really well here. You can see this, a lot of times people grow it as an ornamental. It's a really nice specimen tree. And this tree right here is growing in the shade. This is not its normal growing condition. This plant would grow best if it's in full sun. So if you're planning on planting this tree, get one, have a couple by themselves. They make a really nice canopy, and put them in full sun, and you're going to have a really pretty kind of tropical plant that's also edible and medicinal. Now this tree here, I just kind of showed you a little glimpse of the property. I'm on about 13 acres, and this is owned by someone else. I'm renting this property, and I have just been discovering all kinds of plants growing here that were probably planted many, many years ago. So this is kind of growing in with all these old yew trees, podocarpus, and it probably self-seeded. So these will self-seed, and if they do, that's great, because then you can always dig up around the base, dig the babies up, and give the plants away or plant some more. You'll have more plants. They're not aggressive or anything though, so you don't have to worry about that. I love this plant. It's just really pretty to look at. The fruits are really, really good. So when this starts to fruit, this actually has a piece of fruit on it, but I don't think this is from this year. I don't know what this is. It could be just a fruit that was left over from last year, but it will fruit in the next couple of months. Right now it's putting on fresh leaves. These are nice and soft green leaves. And the fruit is going to come right out of the center, the top of this plant. And it'll bear little yellow to orange colored fruits. The thing is, the critters love them. The birds love them. So you have to be quick to come and pick them because they don't last very long and they will rot pretty fast. This plant is also in the rose family, and it can be susceptible to diseases that affect rose plants. This is really pretty. Because this plant is in the shade, it won't really bear much fruit at all. So make sure you keep watching, because I'm going to actually talk about what you could use this plant for medicinally. But right now we're going to take some cuttings from some of these plants. And this is really interesting about this plant. This is a really good plant to dry and preserve, and it will keep up to a year. But you want to pick the older leaves. The leaves, you don't want to pick these nice fresh leaves. It would be tempting to do that, but don't do that. You want to pick these older leaves, the ones that are about at least a year old. These have been on this plant. That's going to have the most medicinal value. And not only that, this can be, the younger leaves are slightly toxic. So we're just going to cut some of these. And as always, I like to give thanks to the plant for giving me herbal medicine. Leave an offering if you like to. Whatever you like to do to commune with nature and give back. And we're not going to take so many leaves that we're going to damage the tree. And again, another reason why you don't want to take these leaves, these fresh young leaves, it's because this is where all the fruit's going to come out, and you don't want to damage that part of the plant. If you wanted to propagate this is a really easy plant to propagate. Just like figs, you could simply take a cutting and you could either propagate it in water or moist soil. You know, you can learn how to do that online. And yeah, this is real easy to propagate. So, all right, let's get to cutting. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much. I finally reached 500 subscribers. I'm really grateful for that. That was a personal goal of mine, and that has just really got me excited about continuing with these videos. I don't make any money from these videos, but I feel like they're really great, like I mentioned before, as my small act of resistance, a gift to you. And it also helps to support my brick and mortar shops that I have. I do have an apothecary and a coffee shop in Florida. And, you know, this is just an extra thing that I like to do to stay on top of my knowledge with plants and also give back to the community. So thank you so much for watching. All right, I'm going to get to cutting some leaves off of this plant, and then we'll head back to the kitchen. If I didn't mention it before, this plant is a subtropical, tropical plant. It's going to grow best in zones 7 through 11. It will die if it's exposed to prolonged freezing temperatures. It really doesn't like it below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's minus 12 degrees Celsius. So yeah, this is going to like your warmer weather. Thank you. This is a great plant to add to your permaculture garden or your food forest if you live in the South. This is one plant that has many uses. The fruit is edible, the leaves are used as medicine. It's a great little shade plant. It attracts animals into your garden, and it's just a really pretty ornamental. What I really love about this plant is its medicinal properties. So oftentimes you'll see plants that are growing and adapting in a certain environment, and a lot of times they're used to treat the things that we commonly see in that specific region. For example, in Florida, it's considered a hot swamp, and you'll often see patterns of disharmony that are relating to that, like heat and damp, yin deficiency, blood deficiency, excess yang. So if you don't really understand those things I'm talking about, I'm hoping to shed a little bit of light on these terms, but those are used in traditional Chinese herbalism. When we can think about heat and damp, those are easy concepts to understand. We can also look at the plant to sometimes gather clues about its properties. So one thing about this plant is that it's similar to another plant we use that has very fine hairs on the leaf, and that's mullein. It just so happens that this plant also goes to the lungs and the stomach. So the part of the plant that's used for the medicine is the leaf. In Pinyin, this plant is called pipayi, Yi means leaf. That means that we're going to use that part of the plant. The energy of this plant is cool and bitter. You can see how this might relate to conditions of heat. This herb is also considered an expectorant and an antitussive. So all of this is to say is it's going to be good for patterns with heat, irritating the lungs, coughing, excess phlegm, especially yellow phlegm. So I'm going to read a little bit from Joel Penner's American Dragon. This is a really tremendous site. It's packed full of great information. So Penner is no longer with us, but it is a treasure trove of information that is kept online by his family. And if you use the site, I would strongly encourage you to donate to help offset the cost for the website. In addition to transforming phlegm and clearing lung heat, this herb also harmonizes the stomach. It clears stomach heat and descends stomach chi. So if you have rebellious chi, and you think about rebellious chi as like anything that's coming up, it's rebelling, like vomiting, hiccup and belching, nausea, this is going to help with that. This is a great herb to also combine with other herbs. And Joel Penner has listed some very common herbs that you could combine with loquat for different conditions. You can oftentimes see this herb used in lozenges or syrups. Like if you go to Chinatown, this is a very common thing that you would find in one of the markets. Okay, we're back inside, and as you see, I've picked a few of these loquat leaves. So one of the things about these leaves, it's very similar to another herb that we use in Western herbalism that has small, fine, irritating little hairs. And this is going to give you some clue as to what you might be able to use this plant for. So on the underside of the leaf, you can see, and you see that it has this fuzz. Okay, so one of the things you can do is, just like I'm doing, is use your fingernail to scrape some of that fuzz off. This is pretty time consuming. These hairs are a little bit irritating. I'm going to show you a different way you can prepare this. You just don't have to worry about that so much. So one thing you could do is take a small vegetable brush and then you can just rub it. And this will get quite a bit of the hairs off. Okay, this is a younger leaf here, and this is why I don't get the leaves that are just coming out of the top. Not only do I not want to damage the plant, but these smaller leaves, they don't hold up quite as well. This one's holding up pretty good, but if it were any softer, it would just tear the leaf apart. So it would be hard to get these hairs off of it. After I've gotten all the fuzz off, if you'd like to preserve these to use later, this is an excellent plant to dry. And they'll keep up to a year in a dry, cool, dark place. So you can see it's starting to turn brown already, and the leaves will start turning brown And when they're fully dry, they're not going to retain much of their green color. So what I would do now is just wash these off to make sure you got all your fuzz off of them. I might cut them into 3 or 4 pieces, let them dry. They're going to have to dry. Maybe, I don't know what your environment is like, but the leaves should totally crumble before you put them in a jar. Otherwise, if you put them in there and they're still moist, they will mold very easily. We're going to make a tea out of this right now. One of the things you could do is you could just pour some boiling water over these and steep them. What I would recommend is actually cutting them up and putting in a saucepan. Okay, all I've done is cut up our loquat leaves. I've put some filtered water covering those. That's probably about 2 cups, a little over 2 cups. And I'm going to put this on the stove and bring it to a boil and let it simmer for about 10, 15, 20 minutes. Okay, here is my loquat tea. I brought these to a boil, and these have been simmering for about 15 minutes, and there should be a nice golden brown color. Actually, if this were, I would like this just a little bit darker, but this is pretty good. You can see some of those little hairs still floating on the surface of the water. So if you didn't go through the process of scraping these, or you want to make sure you get all of those little hairs off, what I like to do is use a cotton or a muslin tea bag. And I have my teacup here. I have my little, this is just going to hold the little bag while I pour this in. This is just going to give me one more opportunity to get the fine hairs out of this tea. You know what? I'm going to get a funnel. I feel like I just made this really complicated, but this little bag hopefully has caught most of those little furry hairs. And there's my tea. So this would be great with some honey. You could also mix some other herbs in here. Maybe goji berries might be good with this, or maybe a little chrysanthemum. That concludes making loquat tea. I hope you enjoy. See you next time.